I've always believed that relationships, like old houses, don't fall apart all at once. It starts with something small, a squeaky floorboard, a door that won't quite close, little things you learn to ignore until the foundation shifts. That morning, it was a mug. Just a mug. That's what I told myself. The day started like any other. Haley was sitting at the kitchen table, wrapped in her oatmeal-colored robe, tapping away at her laptop during a virtual team check-in. Her hair was tossed up in that signature, "I'm working, don't bother me" bun, and she had that slightly zoned-out look she always got during morning meetings, half listening, half planning what kind of smoothie she wanted for lunch. The usual. I was making eggs on the stove when I caught a glimpse of something out of place. The mug she was holding. It was white, oversized, a little beat up on the bottom, but it wasn't ours. We have matching ceramic mugs from a trip to Seattle last year. Some chipped ones from my bachelor days, a couple of seasonal Starbucks ones she won't throw out. But this one was new. Or new to me. Across the side, in thick black permanent marker, was a name, Alex. Not imprinted font. Not some generic brand logo or novelty design. It was handwritten. Capital letters. Clear. Confident. Permanent. At first, I didn't think anything of it. Maybe she picked it up from work. Maybe someone left it here. But the longer I looked at it, the more my brain started kicking into overdrive. I felt a weird pressure in my chest, like my subconscious had already decided it mattered before I could convince myself it didn't. I didn't say anything right away. I just kept scrambling the eggs, pretending to focus, watching the way her fingers curled around the mug. Comfortable. Familiar. Like she'd done it before. Her Zoom meeting wrapped up a few minutes later. She yawned, stretched, and took another sip. "Long one?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. She nodded and blinked a few times like she was trying to return to the real world. "Yeah. Monday check-ins always drag." I motioned toward the mug. "That new?" She looked down, then smiled casually, too casually. "Oh. Yeah. I forgot to tell you. We had some leftover stuff at the office from a cleanup day. I just grabbed a few extras. This one's from the break room. I think it's my coworker's Alex something. It's actually great, holds like half a pot of coffee." She grinned and held it up like a product placement. There wasn't even a hiccup in her voice. No hesitation. No stammering. Just a smooth, well-packaged explanation. "Nice," I said, forcing a smile. "Looks personal." She laughed. "I doubt he wants it back. People leave stuff all the time and never come back for it. You should see her lost and found bin. It's like a graveyard of Tupperware and hoodies." She turned back to her laptop, already done with the conversation. And yet I couldn't let it go. Something about the way she said Alex stuck with me. It rolled off her tongue like it had been there before, not as a stranger's name on a mug, but something lived in. Like she'd said it often. Like it had weight. But I kept quiet. Because what was I supposed to say? "Hey, babe, that mug is giving me a weird feeling in my gut." I didn't want to be that guy. The insecure fiancé who spiraled over a coffee cup. The guy who picks fights because of a name in marker. I've always prided myself on being level-headed. Patient. Haley's the one who gets passionate, I'm the one who balances things out. But even as I tried to talk myself down, something had already cracked open. I wish I could explain it better that moment. It wasn't anger or jealousy. It was this sudden, deep stillness inside me, like walking into a familiar room and realizing the furniture had been rearranged while you were gone. Nothing looked obviously wrong. But something wasn't right. I watched her for the rest of the morning, quietly studying the way she moved around the kitchen, humming to herself while scrolling through emails. She didn't seem nervous. Or distant. Nothing about her behavior screamed guilt. But maybe that was the thing. It was too easy. Too rehearsed. Later that night, I brought it up again. Casually. Over dinner. "Hey, I was thinking about that mug," I said as I scraped my plate. "That was Alex's, right? One of your coworkers?" Haley didn't even look up. "Yeah. Alex from supply chain." "Pretty sure." "Why?" "No reason. Just curious." She chuckled and rolled her eyes. "You're not about to get jealous over a coffee mug, are you?" There it was. A smile. Light, teasing, deflective. "Nah," I said. "Just trying to place the name. You never mentioned him." She shrugged. "I mean, there's a million people in our building. I don't talk to most of them. He's just a guy who shares a printer and sometimes brings donuts." And that was that. Except it wasn't. Because later that night, as we were brushing our teeth, I caught her checking her phone under the sink light. A long message. She typed fast, with purpose. When I walked in, she tilted the screen away slightly. Subtle. Almost nothing. But I noticed. I tried not to overthink it. I reminded myself we were in the middle of wedding planning and stress made people act weird. That maybe Alex really was just a random coworker. That maybe I was the one reading too far into things. But even after she fell asleep, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the name Alex flashing in my mind like a blinking cursor. It wasn't the mug. It was everything around it. The way her tone changed. The speed of her smile. The way she sidestepped the conversation just a little too easily. I thought about the venue we'd been planning to tour, the one she bailed on last week because of a late meeting. I remembered how excited she'd been months ago, sending me Pinterest boards and seating charts. Lately, she seemed checked out. Distracted. Like she was doing wedding prep on autopilot. I started mentally retracing our last few months together. The little skipped beats. The subtle shifts. The way she stopped texting me those midday updates she used to send without fail, her lunch, a funny coworker moment, a song she couldn't stop humming. It had all slowed down, like someone turning down the volume without telling me. That's when I knew this wasn't just about a mug. It was about a feeling I couldn't shake. A thread I couldn't ignore. Something inside me, the part that usually trusted her without question, had gone quiet. And in its place, there was a hum of something else. Doubt. They say hindsight is 20/20, but honestly, I think it's more like a high-powered microscope, one you don't even realize you're looking through until it zooms in on all the things you should have seen the first time. After the mug, everything started to look different. The name Alex didn't come up again, but the silence around it felt deliberate. Haley didn't bring the mug out anymore, not even when she was working from home. It vanished. Just like that. One day it was on the counter, and the next, it was gone like it never existed. I didn't ask where it went. I didn't have to. But that mug had opened a door I couldn't close, and behind it were things I'd ignored for too long, little behaviors, odd moments that once felt meaningless but now glared like warning signs. It was like a film reel started playing in the back of my mind. The way she used to light up when we talked about wedding plans. How she'd call me during her lunch breaks just to brainstorm ideas about table settings or whether we should do live music or a DJ. She had color swatches and vendor quotes saved in a shared folder on her laptop. It used to be something we did together, something that made her eyes glow when she talked about it. And then, sometime in the last couple of months, she started pulling away. Subtly at first. She'd skip our Sunday planning sessions, saying she was swamped with work or too tired to think about florists and favors. Her tone started shifting. It wasn't our wedding anymore. It was whatever you want, babe. She'd say it while scrolling on her phone, eyes barely flicking up. At the time, I figured she was stressed. Her job had been demanding lately. New management, late nights, working weekends, all things she chalked up to temporary chaos. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? But now? Now I started tracing those moments like chalk outlines. I remembered how she'd started keeping her laptop closed more often. How I'd walk into the room and she'd tilt the screen down just a little. How she suddenly had a passcode on her phone, which, to be fair, isn't suspicious on its own. But it wasn't there before. And now, when she got a text, she'd glance at it, press the side button, and put it face down like it didn't matter. Except it clearly did. I told myself I was being paranoid. I really did. But the more I looked back, the more the pieces started forming a picture I didn't like. There was that trip she took last month to San Diego, a last-minute conference she said she had to attend. I'd offered to come with her, make a weekend of it. She shut that down fast. Said it was all business, no time for fun. She even said she'd be sharing a room with a coworker to save on expenses. At the time, I admired her frugality. I thought it meant she was being responsible. Now I wasn't so sure. When she came back, she was different. Not in a dramatic way, she wasn't cold or distant. But something had shifted. She smiled less. She stopped asking me to help pick the playlist for the wedding reception. She used to send me photos of centerpieces she liked. Now it was all, I trust your judgment. I started replaying every recent memory, every sentence with a double meaning. Even our arguments had changed. Haley used to fight with fire. When she was upset, you knew it. She'd vent, she'd cry, she'd talk it out until every feeling was laid bare. But now? When I brought something up, like how she hadn't RSVP'd to the venue walkthrough or how she'd missed my cousin's engagement dinner, she just shrugged and said, "You're overthinking it." That phrase, "you're overthinking it," became her go-to response for everything. It was like every concern I had was a reflection of my own insecurity, not her actions. But I wasn't overthinking it. I was noticing. Finally. I remembered one night when we were lying in bed scrolling our phones. I asked her, half joking, "So, are you ever going to elope with me, or are we going to keep dragging this out?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You're the one who wanted the big wedding," she said, then rolled over to face the wall. That stuck with me. We'd both wanted the big wedding. We planned it together, picked the location, tasted the cake samples, laughed about whether to have an open bar or not. She cried when we found the dress shop her mom had once mentioned in passing. Now it was like none of that mattered anymore. Like her heart wasn't in it. And the more I pulled on the thread, the more unraveling I found. There were her late nights at work that never seemed to involve overtime pay. The lunches she claimed were with clients but never showed up on her expense reports. I only noticed because I helped her with taxes last year. I knew her work habits, her billing system. But lately, everything felt edited. Like she was curating a version of her life for me. Polished. Surface level. Then there were her friends. Haley has a tight-knit circle, 3 girls she's known since college. I get along with them, even joined them for a couple of birthday dinners and beach weekends. But lately, they'd gone quiet. I used to see them liking her posts, tagging her in photos. Not anymore. I even messaged one of them, Rachel, asking if everything was okay. She took over a day to respond and said, Haley's just been busy lately. We all have. That didn't sit right. I felt like I was living in a painting that someone had slowly repainted around me, same outline, same frame, but the colors were all wrong. Haley still smiled. She still kissed me goodbye. But it felt hollow. Like muscle memory. The ** Macy had faded too. Not just the physical stuff, though that had grown rare, it was the emotional * Macy. The inside jokes. The stolen glances. The texts that used to say, miss you, now said, don't forget the eggs. I didn't want to believe it. I'd built my life with this woman. I'd imagined a future with her. I defended her when friends joked about how she sometimes talked over me in conversations or *T down my movie choices. I chalked it up to personality differences. I told myself we were a team. But something had shifted. I was noticing more now. I was listening to the silence. To the way she changed the subject when I brought up booking our honeymoon. To how her voice flattened when she said, we'll figure it out. I realized that I had become the only one still holding the rope. She'd let go. Maybe not all at once, but enough to let the distance grow between us like a fault line. And the more I noticed, the more I felt like I had to know the truth. Not just for closure, but for clarity. For my own sanity. Because the worst part wasn't that something had changed. It was that she didn't seem to care that I noticed. There's a strange quiet that settles in when your suspicions finally outpace your denial. You stop making excuses. You stop filling in the blanks with hope. You just watch. Wait. And eventually you act. That's how it was for me. I hadn't planned to go through her laptop. I really hadn't. It felt invasive, a boundary I didn't want to cross. But one night, Haley said she had a vendor meeting across town. Probably a late one, she mentioned while tying her hair up, tossing on a blazer, and giving me the kind of kiss that lands nowhere near your mouth. Don't wait up. That was around 6:30. By 8, I was pacing the kitchen, pretending to be invested in a rerun of some show we used to watch together. By 9, I was staring at the clock. 10 rolled around and there was still no update, no text. The last message I got from her was a vague, it's going long. Sorry. I noticed her laptop was on the dining table, lid half shut. No password prompt. The screen was glowing faintly. I stood there, staring at it like it might bite me. I told myself I wouldn't touch it. That I trusted her. That trust meant something. But trust doesn't live in shadows. And by then, all I had were shadows. I lifted the lid. The screen blinked awake, email was open. Outlook. No password. Her inbox looked normal at first, work threads, calendar invites, the usual vendor back and forth. But something caught my eye. A folder labeled with a string of random numbers and letters, not something anyone would name on purpose. It looked out of place, like a hiding spot in plain sight. I clicked it. What I found wasn't just confirmation, it was a slow, methodical breakdown of the woman I thought I knew. The emails were from someone named Alex R. At first, I didn't even process the last name. All I saw was the tone. They weren't work emails. They were full of inside jokes, lines that flirted with the edge of emotional in * Macy. Then they crossed it. Then they leaped over it like it had never existed. Some of the messages were months old. Some as recent as 3 days ago. There were photos, not scandalous, not explicit. But they didn't need to be. A selfie of the two of them at what looked like a winery. Another in a hotel room with a breakfast tray between them. Casual, blurry, lived in. I read one email twice, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't believe what it said. I still think about that weekend in San Diego. The way you laughed in bed after spilling wine on the sheets. I didn't want to leave. I didn't want any of it to end. I felt a sharp pressure in my chest. Like someone had reached into me and turned something inside out. Another read. Do you think he suspects anything? I feel guilty sometimes. But then I see you and it all makes sense again. I don't know what to do. It wasn't just physical. It was emotional. Ongoing. Layered. She hadn't made a mistake, she'd made a choice. Repeatedly. Carefully. She hadn't gone to San Diego for a conference. She went for him. There were hotel confirmations. Lift receipts. Dinner reservations in both their names. I scrolled further and found messages where she talked about me. Indirectly, but clearly. He's sweet, but I feel invisible when I'm home. With you, I feel like I'm me again. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. Invisible? I'd spent months planning a future with her. Building a life. I cooked dinner most nights, handled most of the wedding prep, even covered rent when she switched jobs. And still, I was invisible. I felt like I was reading a book about a stranger. A stranger who looked like Haley, sounded like her, lived in our apartment, but clearly wasn't the person I'd given my heart to. I found a message from Alex, dated the night before. I hate sneaking around. I want to be with you without the secrets. If you're not ready to leave him, just tell me. She hadn't replied. Yet. I closed the laptop slowly, carefully, like that would somehow undo what I'd seen. I sat there at the table, every light in the apartment suddenly too bright, the air too thick. I heard the refrigerator hum, the faint tick of the hallway clock, the hollow silence stretching between seconds. She came home around 10:45. Hair windswept. Eyes alert. No signs of guilt? Hey, she said casually, kicking off her shoes. Sorry, it ran late. We had to do a walkthrough twice because the lighting kept throwing everything off. I nodded, staring at her like she was a mirage. Did you eat? She asked, walking past me. Yeah, I said. Just leftovers. She kissed me on the cheek and went into the bathroom to shower. And I just sat there. Still. Quiet. Trying to figure out what to do next. I didn't confront her. Not then. Maybe I should have. But I needed more than shock. I needed clarity. A plan. Proof that would hold up when the lies started spilling out. I knew the minute I said something, she'd deny it, spin it, twist it into something smaller than it was. So I waited. That night, I lay beside her in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the steady rhythm of her breath. I tried to remember when it had changed. When she stopped being my partner and started being someone I didn't recognize. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was how normal everything still looked. Like nothing had happened. Like I wasn't lying there, heart split open, beside someone who had already chosen to leave. She just hadn't told me yet. When you find the truth sitting in front of you, ugly and unfiltered, you think it'll give you relief. That certainty will make it easier. It doesn't. It just makes everything heavier. After I found the emails, I didn't sleep. Not really. I closed my eyes, but my mind played a reel I couldn't shut off. Her laugh in that hotel selfie, her words about feeling invisible, the phrase I want to be with you without the secrets. The next morning, I made coffee like I always did. Same routine. But something in me had changed. I had proof now. Undeniable. Tangible. And I still didn't know what to do with it. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because a small, quiet voice inside me said, see it with your own eyes. That voice wouldn't shut up. So when she told me 3 days later that she'd be flying to Seattle for the weekend, Alex's wedding, she said, I nearly choked. She said it like it was the most normal thing in the world. Old coworker. We stayed in touch. I almost didn't go, but he insisted. It'll be good to see everyone. She even offered an awkward smile. You don't have to come. It's a weird crowd. All tech people. I nodded. Okay. Inside, my stomach was on fire. Alex. She said his name out loud this time. Said it like it had no weight. Like it was fine. Like it wasn't the same person she'd slept next to in San Diego and emailed late at night. I watched her pack a dress I'd never seen before. Soft mauve, low cut. Way more than wedding guest casual. She packed light. Like someone who already knew whose hotel room she'd be sleeping in. I'll text when I land, she said. She didn't kiss me goodbye. She was halfway to the airport when I booked my flight. It was impulsive, I'll admit that. A last-minute seat on a red-eye to Seattle. No plan beyond watching things unfold. I didn't even tell anyone. I just packed a duffel, grabbed a hoodie, and flew. She had told me which hotel she'd be staying in, or maybe she hadn't meant to, but I'd seen the booking confirmation on her calendar weeks ago. I called ahead and got a room in the same building, 2 floors above. The clerk didn't ask questions. I checked in, dropped my bag, and waited. The next afternoon, I lingered near the lobby. The wedding, apparently, was happening off-site at a small venue nearby. But something told me they weren't in any rush to get there. Around 5 p.m., She walked through the revolving doors. Haley. And him. I recognized him from the emails. Alex R. Medium height, fit, beard a little too neat. He had the kind of confidence that didn't need loud clothes or flashy shoes. Just stood close to her like he belonged there. Like this wasn't their first weekend together. Like they were just picking up where they left off. They laughed as they crossed the marble lobby. She touched his arm lightly. He leaned in to say something, lips close to her ear. She smiled like a teenager with a crush. And that's when I knew. I didn't need more proof. I was watching it happen in real time. I followed them at a distance. They took the elevator to the 6th floor. I didn't get in, just waited near the stairwell, then climbed slowly, quietly. At the top, I heard them in the hallway. Muffled laughter. The sound of a keycard. They didn't close the door right away. The gap was small, but it was enough. I stayed back, out of the line of sight, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I wasn't proud of what I was doing, but I wasn't going to look away now. Inside the room, soft music played from someone's phone. Haley had kicked off her shoes. She stood barefoot on the carpet, holding a wine glass. She wore his shirt, buttoned down, rolled sleeves, too big on her. Alex was by the minibar pouring drinks. He wasn't in a suit, just jeans and a t-shirt, comfortable, mate. Like the wedding was an afterthought. She said something I couldn't hear. He laughed. She laughed harder. Then she sat on the edge of the bed, sipping slowly. The way they looked at each other, it wasn't nervous. It wasn't new. It was familiar, routine. There was no secrecy in their body language. No fear. Just comfort. She'd done this before. I backed away before I could hear more. I didn't need the sound. I walked back to my floor, sat on the edge of my bed, and stared at the carpet. She hadn't even tried to lie this time. When she'd said Alex's wedding, she wasn't offering information. She was warning me not to come, giving me an alibi to swallow. And I had, until now. That night I didn't sleep. I watched the city lights blink through the window and wondered how long it had been like this. Wondered how many weekends, how many vendor meetings or conference calls were really just excuses to slip out of my life and into someone else's arms. And what hurt the most wasn't the betrayal itself. It was that she looked happy. Happier than I'd seen her in months, maybe years. With him, she didn't flinch, didn't act like someone sneaking around. Because in her mind, she already wasn't with me. She'd just forgotten to tell me. The next morning, I woke before the sun. There was a strange calm in my chest. Like my body had finally accepted what my heart had been screaming for weeks. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel numb either. I felt done. Finished. The kind of done that doesn't beg for closure, that doesn't chase apologies. I didn't want an explanation anymore. I already had one, spelled out in emails, confirmed in body language, whispered through the crack in a hotel door. Haley had made her choice. Now it was time for me to make mine. I sat at the small hotel desk, pulled out my phone, and started typing a message. I stared at it for a long time before hitting send. No dramatic monologue. No pointed accusations. Just a quiet goodbye that said everything that needed to be said. I know about everything. Please don't come home. I'll handle the rest. Consider this engagement over. I waited for a response. Nothing came. Maybe she was still asleep. Maybe she'd seen it and didn't know what to say. Or maybe she didn't think I had the guts to actually walk away. She was wrong. I packed my bag, checked out of the hotel, and took the first available flight back to Denver. I didn't text her again. I didn't answer when her name flashed across my screen 2 hours into the flight. I watched the mountains slide past beneath the wing and felt something heavy lift off my chest, like I'd finally exhaled after months of holding my breath. When I landed, it was late afternoon. The apartment we shared still smelled like her lavender detergent and the vanilla candle she lit when she worked from home. Everything was just as she left it, half-folded laundry on the couch, her water bottle on the nightstand, one of her earrings resting in the bathroom sink. It felt like walking through the shell of a life that no longer belonged to me. I started making calls. Venue. Cancelled. Caterer. Cancelled. Photographer. Deposit lost, but whatever. Worth it. I called her parents, too. That was the hardest part. They liked me. Her mom even used to call me her future son-in-law with this warmth in her voice that made me feel like family. When I told them the wedding was off, her dad went quiet. Her mom asked why, and I told her gently, "Ask Haley." They didn't press. I think part of them already knew. The next day, I changed the locks. She came back that evening. I knew she would. I heard her car pull into the driveway just before sunset. I didn't look out the window, but I heard her footsteps on the porch, the jingle of keys, the pause when the door didn't open. Then came the knock. Firm. Repeated. Like she believed sheer insistence would undo everything. "Ethan," she called. "Can we talk?" I didn't move. Another knock. "Please. Just let me explain." Still nothing. After a few minutes, she left. I saw her standing by her car for a while, staring up at the windows like maybe I'd appear with tears in my eyes and ask for the whole story. But I'd already lived the story. And it wasn't one I wanted to keep reading. Over the next few days, she tried again. Texts. Missed calls. Emails. I read one, just to see. It started with, "I'm sorry," but quickly shifted into, "I was confused," and then, "I didn't mean for it to happen like that." That's how cheaters talk when they've run out of lies. They don't take responsibility, they take pity on themselves. I didn't respond. Instead, I boxed up her things. Neatly. Respectfully. I didn't break anything, didn't throw her clothes out on the lawn like in some overdramatic movie scene. I just packed them, labeled the boxes, and left them with the building manager for her to collect. A few days later, I took off the ring. Not because I needed to. Because I wanted to. I placed it on the windowsill and stood there a long time, watching the light catch its edges, wondering how something so small had once meant everything. People always say love is a choice. And maybe it is. But so is betrayal. And Haley hadn't just slipped. She had committed. She had lied. She had rewritten our future behind my back with someone else's pen. I wasn't going to compete with that. I wasn't going to beg. She showed me who she was. I finally believed her. The strangest part? After a few weeks of silence, she came back again. Middle of the afternoon. Unannounced. I was home. I didn't answer the door, but I watched from the upstairs window. She stood there holding a folder, dressed in business casual like she'd just stepped out of a meeting. Her hair was pinned back. No makeup. A little disheveled. She knocked once. Then again. Then just stood there like she didn't know what to do without someone letting her in. Eventually, she left the folder on the welcome mat and drove off. I waited a full hour before I opened the door. Inside the folder was a letter. Handwritten. Pages of it. Some parts one couldn't finish. Others I read twice just to be sure I wasn't imagining her gall. She said she missed me. Said it was a mistake that got out of control. That she still loved me. That she hated how it ended. That she wished she could go back and fix it. I folded the letter, placed it back inside, and slid it under the couch. I didn't throw it away. I didn't burn it. But I didn't read it again either. That was the last time she came by. Maybe because she finally understood that silence was my answer. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't heartbroken. I was free. And she wasn't used to seeing me that way. She'd always known me as the guy who tried, who fixed, who forgave. But not this time. This time I chose myself. The apartment felt different after that. Not just emptier. Lighter. The kind of empty that makes space for something new. I took down the engagement photos. Repainted the wall in the hallway. Bought a new coffee maker. Small things, maybe, but they felt like steps forward. The ring stayed on the windowsill for a while. Then one morning, I tucked it into a drawer. Not out of bitterness, but out of peace. Some endings don't need a door slammed or a final scream. Sometimes the most powerful goodbye is the one you say without words. Just a lock changed. A message sent. And the quiet, clear decision to move on.